Hi, and welcome to The Third Spring, a podcast where we talk about women's health, aging with strength, and navigating the seasons of womanhood through the lens of being an Asian woman. I'm Evie, your host for today's episode, which is part one of a two-part series on menopause. In this episode, we will answer two fundamental questions. What in the world are menopause and perimenopause? And why are they the most critical biological events happening to women after midlife? In the next episode, we'll dive into specific actions you can take, starting in your 20s, to navigate this journey with strength and confidence. If you're in your 40s, 50s, or beyond, I'm so glad you're here. Understanding menopause impact is crucial to optimizing your health and well-being. And if you are in your 20s or 30s, this episode is especially for you. By the end, you'll not only be better equipped to support your mother, grandmother, or other women you love through this major biological transition, but you will also understand why taking care of your future menopausal health starts now. So, what is menopause and perimenopause? In simple terms, menopause is defined as the moment when it has been 12 months since your last menstrual period. From that day onwards, you are in menopause for the rest of your life. In Asia, the average age of menopause is around 48 to 50 years old. But menopause doesn't happen overnight. The body is not a switch that is suddenly turned off on the 1 year anniversary of your last period. It's a gradual process that can begin up to a decade prior to that day. Since menopause is pretty much a permanent absence of periods, to understand menopause is to first understand the menstrual cycles. Let's start with the basics. The menstrual cycle begins when we are on our period. It is a sign that no pregnancy took place successfully in the last cycle. The bleeding that we experience between day 1 and day 5 is the shedding of the uterus lining. It is as if we are tearing down a room's wallpaper to prepare for a renovation. From day 6 to day 14, our body prepares for the possibility of pregnancy again. The best way to understand this is to imagine your ovaries as a fridge that is stocked with egg cartons. Each egg lives in a shell called a follicle, which protects and nurtures the egg inside. Every month, your brain tells the ovaries to open the fridge, select a few follicles, and start growing them. As day 14 approaches, typically one follicle outgrows the rest and becomes the dominant follicle. The others stop growing and fade away. On day 14 or so, we reach the climax of the menstrual cycle. The brain triggers the dominant follicle to crack open and release the mature egg. This process is known as ovulation. At the same time, the uterus thickens its lining. It is kind of like putting up new wallpaper to welcome a new tenant. From day 15 to day 28, the mature egg travels through the fallopian tube, where it may be fertilized by your sperm. During this period, the uterus continues enriching its lining with nutrients, making it lush and comfortable. It is like stocking up the newly renovated room with food to make a new tenant stay pleasant. If pregnancy does not happen, towards the end of the cycle, the uterus starts tearing down its lining, and the cycle repeats. Now we are going to take a look at the same menstrual cycle, but through the lens of hormones. You can think of hormones as the body's messengers delivering instructions to various organs and tissues. When the body wants to instruct a body part to do something, it floods the bloodstream with the relevant hormones carrying that instruction. When the blood circulates to the intended body parts, they have the right receptors to receive and understand that instruction. The menstrual cycle operates smoothly thanks to intricate feedback loops of hormones. Between day 1 and day 5, when we experience bleeding, the level of estrogen hormones is low, which prompts the brain to release another hormone called follicle-stimulating hormone. As the name suggests, the follicle-stimulating hormones carry instructions to grow the follicles in the ovaries. Some follicles respond to the instructions and start growing. As the follicles grow, they in turn produce estrogen, which signals to the uterus to thicken its lining. The more they grow, the more estrogen they produce. Among them, eventually there's one dominant follicle that grows the fastest and produces the most estrogen. Around day 14 of the cycle, when estrogen level peaks, the brain responds by dialing down follicle-stimulating hormone and ramping up the production of the third hormone called luteinizing hormone, or LH. Honestly, LH might as well stand for less H. That's because LH is the hormone that triggers the dominant follicle to crack open and release a mature egg. Once the mature egg is released, what remains is an empty follicle. But amazingly, this isn't the end for it. This empty follicle transforms itself into a new structure called the corpus luteum. Think of it like a super spy embarking on one final mission before retirement. This super spy sends out encrypted signals, mainly in the form of the hormone progesterone, along with a small amount of estrogen. These signals instruct the uterus to further thicken its lining, preparing for a potential pregnancy. If pregnancy does not happen, our super spy retires from a lifetime of service. In other words, the corpus luteum degenerates, leading to decreased estrogen and progesterone levels. This hormonal drop signals the uterus to shed its lining, which initiates menstruation. A quick recap. There are 3 primary hormone producers that regulate the menstrual cycle. First is the brain. Second is the developing follicles that produce estrogen. And third is the super spy corpus luteum, which is the main producer of progesterone. What happens when we are in perimenopause? Women are born with approximately 1 to 2 million follicles in their ovaries. By puberty, this number decreases to around 300 to 400,000. Throughout our life, only about 300 to 500 eggs are ovulated. The rest naturally degenerates. Starting in our 30s, both the quantity and quality of follicles decline significantly. That means fewer follicles grow each cycle. Less growing follicles mean less estrogen produced. On top of that, the follicles are also increasingly less sensitive to the follicle-stimulating hormones, which means that they can't grow very well. Sometimes, the dominant follicle may not develop, which means that there's no ovulation. In cycles without ovulation, there is no empty follicle left behind from the release of a mature egg. It will therefore not transform into our super spy corpus luteum, and as a result, the big producer of progesterone does not exist in those cycles. Overall, estrogen and progesterone levels decline, but during perimenopause, the levels can fluctuate in an erratic manner. This results in many irregular menstrual cycles, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter period, sometimes there is ovulation, and sometimes there isn't. At this point, you might ask, so what if estrogen and progesterone hormones decline and fluctuate? The answer is, beyond being important messengers in the reproductive system, estrogen and progesterone are also important messengers in our bone, muscle, brain, and heart system, just to name a few. As a result, the chaotic fluctuation of these hormones during perimenopause can disrupt these systems too. Sudden drops or spikes in estrogen disrupt your body's temperature regulation, causing the infamous hot flashes and night sweats. Fluctuating estrogen and low progesterone affect brain neurotransmitters, causing anxiety, mood swings, and disrupting sleep. Very importantly, estrogen regulates metabolism, lean muscle mass, and fat distribution. Its decline contributes to increased belly fat and muscle loss, altering our body composition. The list of perimenopause symptoms goes on, many of which are destabilizing. I recall my mom, in her late 40s, experiencing sudden weight gain. Despite maintaining her usual diet and activity levels, her confidence suffered. She also endured hot flashes and night sweats, which she shared with me. But as a teenager, I didn't know how to help. So, what really happens to us at menopause? Eventually, at menopause, our ovaries stop working completely. No follicles grow and ovulation stops. The body loses its biggest producer of estrogen and progesterone. With these hormones gone, we lose their protective effects on bone, muscle, cardiovascular, and brain health. Without estrogen, bone breakdown and muscle loss speed up in ways that may seem invisible at first, but the impact accumulates quickly and profoundly. After menopause, women can lose up to 20% of bone mass in just the first 5 to 7 years. That's like the structural foundation of your body weakening dramatically in a short time, making bones more porous, brittle, and prone to fractures. A seemingly small fall could lead to a broken hip, and many women never fully recover from that. At the same time, muscle mass declines by about 0.6% per year after menopause. While that may sound small, over a decade, that's around 6% less muscle, which directly affects strength, balance, and coordination. Everyday things like carrying groceries, walking upstairs, or catching yourself from a stumble become harder. To me, these are not cohort facts. It is something that I've witnessed in my family. My grandma suffered 2 hip fractures and she requires round the clock care now. My mom's been diagnosed with osteoporosis, so it is going to be harder for her to recover from fall injuries. Honestly, it really concerns me. For a start, I want my mom to enjoy her retirement fully, and strong bones and muscles are essential for that. Moreover, observing the myriad of challenges my parents face as caregivers for my grandma, I worry about my future role. Beyond bones and muscles, estrogen helps maintain flexible, healthy blood vessels. They support good cholesterol balance and reduces inflammation. Not having estrogen reverses all these positive effects, raising the risk for heart disease. Last but not least, estrogen also supports neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to adapt and form new connections, regulates mood, promotes blood flow to the brain, and glucose metabolism. Without it, women face increased risks of memory lapses, brain fog, and cognitive impairments, including Alzheimer's disease. Thank you for joining me in this exploration of menopause and its far-reaching effects. Understanding menopause isn't about fearing what lies ahead, it's about reclaiming our power. Yes, the changes that happen during perimenopause and menopause can feel overwhelming. They are biological, far-reaching, and for many of us, inevitable. But knowledge is not a burden, it's a tool. When we understand how our bodies work, we can prepare, adapt, and advocate for ourselves and the women we care about. By starting the conversation early, we normalize this major life transition and create space for strength, support, and agency. You deserve to thrive through every season of life, and it starts with knowing what's coming and knowing that you're not alone. In the next episode, we'll dive into what you can do at every stage of life, whether you are in your 20s, 40s, or beyond, to build the foundation for strength, vitality, and joy through menopause and after. Because thriving is not just possible, it's within reach.